you for joining us for today's webinar on environment and health in perspective of COVID-19 pandemic organized by Paribesh Sathi. On the behalf of Paribesh Sathi, I am Poshari Chatraj going to host this international webinar. Before starting, I want to request all the participants to kindly mute their microphones and not to present their screen by any mistake to avoid interruptions during any speech and presentation. And for better experience, they are requested to use headphones or earphones. At first, I would like to request Mr. Priyabrata Roy, Secretary Organizing Committee, as well as Secretary of Paribesh Sathi to deliver his welcome address.
Thank you, Paushali. One warm welcome and a very good evening to everybody. On behalf of Paribesh Sathi, I cordially welcome all the distinguished speakers, Paribesh Sathi members, and the attendees to this international webinar. We have a panel of eminent speakers who will deliver their lectures on various topics related environment and health in perspective of COVID-19 pandemic. As we cannot accommodate all the participants in Google Meet, we have arranged a YouTube streaming. Participants can raise their question in YouTube comment box. At the end of the session, speakers will address the queries. Feedback form will be provided at all the participants through the comment box of YouTube. All the participants will be provided with their webinar certificates in their registered email IDs. I believe you all will enjoy the webinar session and get knowledge from the lectures from the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Priyabrata Roy. Now I request Dr. Shomi Pine Bose, Chairperson and President of Paribesh Sathi, to deliver her inaugurating speech.
Thank you, Ms. Paushali Chaturaj, for your kind introduction. Now, good evening to everyone, all the members of Paribesh Sathi team, honorable speakers, and dear participants. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to the opening of today's second international webinar on environment and health in perspective of COVID-19 pandemic. Let me introduce about Paribesh Sathi. Paribesh Sathi has been recently formed a small and effective organization during this pandemic. After their formation, they made themselves to confront with all the social and environmental challenges according to their ability. In this regard, for your information, you can find all our previous activities on our Facebook page named Paribesh Sathi and YouTube channel. We would like to request you, please feel free to join with us. I hope this webinar will also get a huge success like their all other previous activities. Now, in short, I am going to introduce all the honorable speakers who will deliver their informative presentation in this webinar. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Torun Keswani, Senior Postdoctoral Scientist at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, New York, USA, who is the theme speaker of our webinar. Next, I would like to introduce Professor Subhas Chandra Shatra, who is a well-renowned environmental scientist and retired senior professor of Department of Environmental Science at University of Kalyani, Nadia, West Bengal. Followed by Professor S.C. Shatra, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Krishna M. Agarwal, who is a senior professor of Environment Management and former dean at Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, Kolkata, West Bengal, India. Next, I would like to introduce our last speaker, Professor Arindam Bhattacharya from Department of Zoology, University of Calcutta. Lastly, I wish to acknowledge all the members of Paribesh Sathi team as well as the esteemed expert who have been involved with us. With this, in closing of my expression, I wish that the outcome of the valuable ideas and thoughts from the webinar will prove useful to overcome new challenges and define a new dimension in dealing with the current situation. Thank you. Over to Ms. Paushali Chaturaj.
Thank you, Dr. Shomi Pine Bose, for your inaugurating speech and little introduction about this webinar. Now, I would like to introduce our theme speaker, Dr. Tarun Keshwani, who is a senior postdoctoral scientist at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, New York, USA, and is currently investigating on coma during cerebral malaria and potent adjunctive therapies. He obtained his MSc and MPhil in environmental science from University of Kalyani. Thereafter, he obtained his PhD entitled Role of T cells and dendritic cells Interaction in Malaria from Department of Zoology, University of Calcutta. During PhD, he received several awards like Elsevier Award for contribution in human parasitology, Australia 2013, Raman Chapak Fellowship, France, gold medal from Indian Society for Parasitology at BHU. He joined Institute Pasteur Lilly with prestige Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow, where he continued his research in malaria immunopathology. He also received Young Researcher Prize in Neurobiology, France. Before moving to USA, he was also the part of the team in France studying in immunogenicity of pan-Ebola vaccine and their mechanism of action. Now, with the permission of chairperson, I like to invite Dr. Tarun Keshwani to deliver the theme lecture.
Good evening, everyone. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you for the nice introduction. I would like to share my slides now. So my slides are visible. Hello. Yeah, my slides are visible to everyone.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, a great thank you to my colleagues from Department of Environmental Science and all the pass outs and the recent students, researchers, faculties there to give me an opportunity to be a theme speaker in this esteemed international webinar meet, where all my eminent professors, my PhD supervisor, Dr. Arindam Bhattacharya, are also presenting. So I feel honored to be part of this. As we know that COVID pandemic is a big issue now. It's almost half of the year has passed, but we are still in such a stress that we never felt during this last decade. So first thing which I would like to mention is the virtual support center, which is the utmost important part in this era because of the COVID. Even if the COVID situation has decreased in many parts of the world, but still the stress among the people is of huge burden. So a virtual support center, what is a virtual support center? It supports mental stress, well-being of families, supporting through various newsletters, apps, where people will go through those. And because we have to be supporting the people and the other, especially children who are going through psychological stress. So I think somehow the Paribesh Sathi has come up to the mark to be a virtual supporter in this pandemic situation. So what's coronavirus and COVID-19? Named COVID-19, we are all aware of this fact now, especially to the electronic media and awareness among the people. I will just go rapidly through this, that the main severe symptoms are high fever, pneumonia, and primary symptoms. We know that dry cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, and body aches. So it transmits from person to person through sneezing or coughing, but there are a lot of research still going on because it's just the beginning of the pandemic. The origin of COVID-2, as we know, it's primarily to humans. It occurred through rodents. It's a zoonotic species from bats to animals to humans. But for the coronavirus, current COVID-19, we are still not sure whether it transmitted from bat to pangolins to humans or not. So still we are working on. But the previous one, the respiratory syndrome transferred from camels, civets, and all. So still research is going on in that situation. So I would just love to present the current coronavirus cases in India. So in total, sorry. So the mild condition, if we see that these are the closed cases, the cases which had an outcome recovered a 94% or discharge, and the deaths are 6%. But if we see the currently infected patients, we have almost only 1% serious or critical, which is also a huge number. But mostly 99% are in mild condition. So somehow the things are subsiding down. But in India, if we see the latest update on 3rd August, that we still are in the peak, we have to reach the plateau. So these green ones are the recovered, this red bar is the confirmed, and the deaths are here, the ash color lines. So these are the data from the MOHWF and John Hopkins and from Times of India. So what's the spike which we are talking about? Because the phase of response to disaster is always a bit tricky. If we consider a scenario of COVID, initially during the January, we had the warning, then the impact, then the honeymoon phase where it went to the peak. India is still in the honeymoon phase, I think. So after several weeks and months in New York, we have, in USA, we have a second disaster, hopefully. So I hope it will subside down and it will enhance community and individual adaptation, which worldwide people had tried also herd immunity, but still we have a lot of things to understand. So by Ruth Caron, she's a vaccine researcher, he's a vaccine researcher at John Hopkins, and said that I think this virus is with us to the future. We are all aware of this by now, but also so is influenza with us. And for the most part, flu doesn't shut down our society. We manage it. We know many people surrounding us who are managing it, who are coping up with this. So before going to the other part, I would just like to introduce a basic thing, which we are all thinking of now, the vaccines. There are 4 phases primarily for the vaccine development. And there are 5, it's very good news that 5 to 6 vaccines had crossed the phase 1 and phase 2 phase, where we have the very low population size, the sample size. The phase 3, we have almost 5 to 6 vaccines in phase 3, and it's a good news, but it takes time because there are methodological issues and problems. It may take months or years to complete, since sufficient time period must elapse for subjects to react to the vaccine and develop to the antibodies. So that's why it takes time, but we are going in a good direction. We don't know what's going to work out or not, but this is a current vaccine tracker updated yesterday. So there are almost 140 plus preclinical vaccines, not yet in human trials. Phase 1, 18, phase 2 in safety trials are 12, phase 3, 6 vaccines in large scale efficacy tests, and the Oxford vaccine is also in this test, in this list. The Moderna vaccine from USA, and one which got approved few days back, which has a limited use, which is a CanSino Biologics developed a vaccine based on adenovirus called 85, but it has a limited use. It has been approved for 1 year for the military and other people, especially. So working with the environment to protect people. I mean, in COVID-19, the planet has delivered its strongest warning today that humanity must change. It has been quoted by Injo Anderson. She's an United Nations Environment Program and Under Secretary General. United Nations Environment Program is working very hard for now because the COVID-19 shows that the health of the people and the planet are on and the same. So it's very important perspective. That's why there was a survey that how many people expect government to make protection of the environment a priority. And most of, if you see the green bars, most of the developing nations, they said that the environment is a priority in post-COVID-19 recovery, which should have been the case when the first SARS came in 2002 and all. Then before that, Ebola, by that time, we should have given priority to the environment and its perspectives. So we know that the coronavirus impact on the environment by now, and it impacts the carbon emissions, there are less greenhouse gases now. The wildlife and habitat are coming to nature. Actually, there is a reset button in the nature now. It's almost the nature has been reset. But the biological waste it has not been discussed to great extent. Today, eminent professor will speak on that, the biomedical waste and the energy consumptions. So energy consumptions has also increased. So as the coronavirus pandemic unfolds across the globe, threatening lives and upending the world economy, an unexpected side effect has been a decrease in the greenhouse gas emission, as I was mentioned. But for the medical waste, to the decline of air pollutants has not been discussed in greater extent. So I'm almost ending my theme presentations, but I would like to focus or conceptualize the concept that the triangle disease concept. So as we know that the environment, geographical locations, immune response, new viral pathogen strains, a shift in ecosystems, all are important for a disease. A susceptible host or pathogen, we have new viral strains now, a conducive environment. This all creates a triangle which makes a shift in the ecosystems, and the pathogen exploits new ecological niche. An immune response part, which Professor Arindam Bhattacharya will speak about today, and the climate change, chronic infection, asymptomatic carriers, reservoir for viral transmission. So overall, the modeling or changes in the ecology and biodiversity impacts the disease outcome, the immune response among the multi-ethnic population. So we have to be very meticulous about this aspect in future approach to the pandemics and new diseases. So I conceptualized this part that Professor S.C. Satra, who was mentor of my during my MSc projects in a University of Kalyani, he will present environment and public health. Professor Krishna M. Agarwal, his books I studied a lot during my master's and MPhil. He will present the challenges in post-COVID scenario and the biomedical waste management. And Professor Arindam Bhattacharya, he will present the climate change and immunity, and hence they will create the triangle of disease to increase our knowledge in this aspect. So I'd like to thank you, everyone. I hope I was able to deliver what was expected as a theme speaker. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Tarun Keshwani, for the nice theme lecture. Now, it gives me immense pleasure in introducing you to our first speaker, Professor S.C. Shatra, who is well-renowned environmental scientist working in the field of environmental biology, ecology, limnology, bioremediation, and toxicology. He is a retired professor of University of Kalyani and has the teaching and research experiences of more than 43 years. He has published over 300 research papers and 20 books. His book Environmental Science is widely used as textbook throughout nation. With 64 PhDs, over 50 students completed MPhil dissertation on various aspects under his supervision. He has the credit for carrying out more than 50 EIA projects. He has received various prestigious fellowships such as Austrian Government Fellowship, IBB Fellowship, DST Visiting Fellowship, etc. He is an associate editor of the International Journal of Environmental Science and Technology, Iran, and regular reviewer of more than 25 journals, and life members of various scientific and institutional bodies like Indian Science Congress Association, Indian Botanical Association, National Botanical Society, etc. He was the coordinator of ENVI Center on Biotechnology supported by MOEF and CC. Now we will look at the presentation from Professor S.C. Shatra. With the permission of Chairperson, I'm pleased to introduce our next speaker, Dr. K.M. Agarwal, who is a senior professor of environment management and former dean at Indian Institute of Social Welfare and Business Management, Kolkata. He has more than 30 years teaching and research experiences in various fields of air pollution monitoring, air quality simulation modeling, air pollution control and management, along with other key functional area of environment and energy management, and published over 80 research papers and articles in various national and international journals. He has organized more than 50 MDPs, EDPs, workshops, seminars for major industrial corporate sector, in various aspects of environment, energy, and social issues. He has completed more than 150 research and consultancy project works on various dimensions of air pollution control and management, as well as other key environmental and energy management sponsored by international and national agencies like World Bank, UNDP, NTPC, WBPCD, etc. He has published textbook on environment, environmental management and business strategies, handbook on industrial ecology, waste management strategy, and also contributed chapters in the various books. He is a member of several international and national bodies and universities. He has received award for educational leadership in 2017 for his outstanding accomplishment in the field of education. Now, I would like to invite Professor K. M. Agarwal to present his lecture.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Hello. Am I
Yes, sir.
audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So at the outset, I would like to congratulate Paribesh Sathi entire, I can say that young team, what I have seen that, for taking the initiative and you can say the arranging this such a, can say the wonderful seminar, which is the timely needed webinar, not rather seminar, which as Dr. Keswani has already mentioned that he has talked about the entire, you can say the roadmap, what we were thinking that how the environment and the public health is related in the post-COVID scenario, what are the can say the challenges we are facing and how we can overcome. It has both the side that with the, you can say the spread of this COVID, we had a very long lockdown, which has resulted in the improvement of the environment, which has you can say the, again debatable, which has you can say the resulted in the increase in the energy, which has you can say the resulted in the improvement in the overall environmental quality. But at the same time, as Dr. Keswani has rightly mentioned, that we have generated the nearly consider this again the no consider ground verified data is available, but still I can say that as an initial remark that the generation of biomedical waste, not only in our country, globally also, has increased by twofold to fivefold even more. And as we all know that when we talk about the biomedical waste, primarily as a layman, we consider that whatever the waste comes out from the any type of the healthcare facilities, we consider that as a biomedical waste. But it has the number of, you can say the attributes. It should be infectious, it should be can say the toxic, it should be hazardous. That all we'll talk later, but as a, in our initial discussion, we are considering this the waste which is coming out from the healthcare facilities, whether it's a hospital, nursing home, then the pathological center, then other, you can say the research laboratories. All these we consider as the biomedical waste. So primarily this biomedical waste we recognize in the can say the four categories. One is the infectious, as we know that it is posing the threat as we are dealing with, means we are consider trying to deal with it, that the waste, in other words, you can say the 2 to 5 fold excess amount of the waste which is being generated because of this COVID, this thing, coronavirus, that is being considered as a very infectious waste that need to be properly taken care. We will be coming to that, what are the attributes which need to be taken care. And then we have the hazardous waste when we go for the diagnosis, treatment, lot of, you can say the drugs, chemicals are being used, lot of the equipments, gadgets are being used, that again likely to generate the various waste, which again fall under the biomedical waste. Then we have the radioactive waste and general waste. So we'll come to that, although as in the initial remark we have noted that whatever the waste comes out from the healthcare facilities, we consider a biomedical waste, but as a can say the scientific management, we need to emphasize on the segregation of the waste, because the general waste, which like from our house or from the other, you can say the commercial or the business establishment comes, which is not hazardous, which is not infectious, which is not containing any radioactive waste, that we can consider as a general waste. In our common language we say the municipal waste, and that is also consider contributing to the very significant quantum when we'll talk about the say the biomedical waste generation from the healthcare facilities. So we'll be coming to that, how we can. If we see the quantum of biomedical waste generation, there are the various, you can say the thumb rule. I can say the thumb rule because there is no proper scientific assessment, that we consider that 1 to 2 kg per bed per day is typical, you can say the biomedical waste generation rate in our healthcare facilities. Okay, and which lead to around or which can say the turn to around, you can say the 500 plus tons of the per day waste generation in our country. In general, I'm talking about the pre-COVID scenario, and this has got, you can say the annual growth rate of around 7%. Okay, because this has been debated in the our parliament also, and it was reported that around, because it's a highly debatable, with the can say the country of 1.3 billion people, which is producing around 1,700 tons of the biomedical waste. So basically, you might be thinking that why I'm talking about the two data set. One is the 500 plus, another is the 1,700 plus. Okay, so 1,700 plus again is can say the figure which is being considered estimated for the generation of the biomedical waste, but actually the around 500 plus ton is being collected and treated as per our regulatory requirement, as per our, you can say the scientific collection, transportation, then the treatment and ultimate disposal. So that's why this is the difference. You can say that here again nearly threefold difference, so that you have to keep in mind. Then when we talk about, say, this your developed country, that the developed country, the figure is a little higher because of the, can say the mechanism of the treatment, mechanism of the you can say the diagnosis, that is we consider they are generating around 1 to 5 kg per bed per day. So this gives you the little bit, you can say the insight that what is the quantum of biomedical waste which we are generating in pre-COVID scenario. I have just touched that in the post-COVID or the during this pandemic, what is the quantum of waste which is being generated. So you can extrapolate that we have in our country, as per the recent figure, that is the recent available figure, you can see that we have around 2.6 lakhs healthcare facilities in our country. And in addition to that, we have around 12,000 healthcare centers, maybe the and out of that, nearly 120 number of healthcare facilities have their captive incinerator. We'll be coming to that, the kind of, you can say, the treatment facilities which require to handle this biomedical waste. And then, as already we have discussed, that around, if we see the last 3-4 year data, nearly 500 plus ton of the biomedical waste annually, and this every day we are generating, or we have generated rather in 2016, 17 and 18. This gives you the rising trend during the pre-COVID scenario. Okay, and if we see that this, I wanted to just take into the account that if we talk about the biomedical waste and talk about the quantum, we'll be rediscussing this, that we are generating around, say, the, you can say that I'm considering, say, the 1,700 tons per day in our country. Okay, and out of this 1,700 tons, this not the entire amount is the, you can say, the infectious waste. If you see the detailed composition of our can say the understanding, as well as our can say the um, uh, our consideration for the formulating the strategies, you can see that nearly 80% of this waste we consider as a non-infectious waste, provided the segregation is very effective. And 15% is only out of, can say, the total amount, whether we talk about the 1700 or we talk about the 500 plus, only 15% is a pathological or infectious waste. And then, as we were talking, the chemical and pharmaceutical waste, the unused medicine, leftover medicine, expired medicine, and the other chemical which we use for the various treatment, it's account only the 3%. And nearly 1% we have the radioactive material, cytotoxic substances, then the heavy metal, and remaining 1% are is your, you can see, the scarves and other, you can say, the needles, which account for the 1%, which if properly disinfected, it can be recycled and reused after proper disinfection and the can say the proper recycling mechanism. So before we come to the, you can say, the challenges, we must have the, can say, the, we all know that the what is the regulatory framework in our country for the biomedical waste management. As we all know that the biomedical waste management rule was initially enacted in 1998 under the Environmental Protection Act 1986. And then this particular rule was amended in 2011, and then we got the major amendment in 2016. And this particular rule focus on the proper collection of this biomedical waste, then the segregation mechanism, what segregation pattern need to be adopted to not only minimize the risk, but to get the maximum potential of the recycling and reuse of the same. Then what kind of the transport carrier, transport mechanism has to be used, what kind of the processing and the treatment facilities required before we ultimately dispose it in environmentally sound manner. So all these have been spelled out. I'll not go in the detail of that. I'll just give you the brief glimpse of that. Okay. And as already we have discussed, this all healthcare facilities are considered falling under the ambit of abiding by this particular rule, which have been enacted in our country under the Environment Protection Act in 1986. We call as a BMW rules 2016. That is the we call latest version. Then again there are subsequent amendment in 2019, but the major amendment is in 2016. So the responsibility which have been entrusted to look after the provision, as we were talking about the segregation, collection, transportation, then the processing, treatment, and disposal. This responsibility have been entrusted to the every state pollution control board, and in the union territory to the pollution control committees, and they have been empowered to review the you can say the mechanism, quantum which are likely to be generated in the new healthcare facilities, and then based on the review of that, what kind of the treatment and the disposal facilities would be required, maybe by captive or maybe by using the third party facilities. They will give the authorization for handling the biomedical waste to the concerned biomedical this concerned healthcare facilities. Then we have the third party, you can say the biomedical waste treatment and disposal facilities, we call as a common biomedical waste treatment and treatment facilities. So in the Bengal, we have the 6 facilities, and then occupier is basically all the healthcare facilities who are responsible for the generation of this biomedical waste, and operator means who is the owner of this common biomedical waste treatment facilities. Then when we talk about the health responsibilities or the duties of the healthcare facilities who are responsible for the generation of biomedical waste. So the prime responsibility, as already we have noted, that they have to have the proper segregation of the waste, biomedical waste, which is being generated in their respective healthcare facilities, and this segregation has to follow the specific color code. We'll be coming to that. And then this biomedical waste should not be mixed with the any other waste, as we were talking about the your municipal waste. And the all the entire process, starting from the segregation, packaging, transport, storage, has to be done in accordance with the your scientifically recommended method in the rule, which we'll be talking in very briefly in subsequent discussion. Then similarly, the rule has also can say the entrusted the certain responsibilities or the duties when you go for the setting up of the common biomedical waste treatment facilities. That number one is that they have to timely collect the waste from the generator of the waste. There is the time that within 24 to 48 hours, not more than that, they have to, depending on the quantum of the generation, and then they have to maintain the logbook, that how much waste they are biomedical waste they are receiving from the various occupier, and what is the you can say the quantum, and the mode of transport, and so on, and the type of waste what they have received. And they have to have the adequate, you can say, the facilities for the treatment and the ultimate disposal of this biomedical waste. So as already we have discussed, there are the 4 color code which has to be adopted for the segregating the biomedical waste. That you can see that as we were discussing, the when we talk about the scientific process of the biomedical waste management, it starts with the segregation at the generation point itself, because the subsequent segregation will not have the any meaning. Okay, because this you have to keep in mind, that this segregation has to be adopted, and that's why we are having the different color code to have the different types of the waste segregated at the source itself. So this become easier for the subsequent, you can say, the transportation, subsequent treatment, and ultimately can say the disposal of that same. Then the collection of the segregated waste, that may be by the captive your treatment facilities, or by the common treatment facility. Then the transportation, then unloading of that particular waste, then disinfection of the not all the waste, the certain category of the waste, and then the treatment again as per the your categorization of the waste. And the treatment also include the your the whatever the wastewater which will be generated, that has to be passed through the effluent treatment plant, and then the recycling, and whatever the material we can go for take it for the recycling, that has to be sent for the recycling after proper disinfection, proper treatment. And then ultimately the residue which is not having the any resource, significant resource value, that has to go for the sanitary landfill. So this is in nutshell the, you can say, the process which need to be followed for the having the scientific management. This gives you the glimpse that how the your biomedical waste required to be collected, especially this highly infectious waste, which we call as a COVID-19 biomedical waste, which is recommended to be collected in the orange color bags, so that it is have the separate, you can say, the identification. And this we consider not only the infectious, but we consider as the highly infectious biomedical waste. Then when we talk about the common biomedical waste treatment facilities, they are having the disinfection facilities, which include the autoclaving. Then they are having the incinerator, for incinerating the your incinerable waste after proper disinfection, and whatever the wastewater is being generated that need to be treated. This gives you the glimpse what kind of the your effluent treatment plant is required to be set up when we are going for the your common biomedical waste treatment facilities, and the shredder, because after autoclaving, disinfecting the certain recyclable waste, whether we talk about the needles, shafts, or other waste, can be shredded so that we can have the recycling of the same, not the reuse of the same. And when we talk about, say, the West Bengal, we have, as already I have mentioned, that we have the six common biomedical waste treatment facilities, which are having the total capacity of, you can say, the waste which is likely to be generated from around 1.5 lakhs bed per day. And if you see the, you can say, the post-COVID scenario that we are presently, we are having in our, say, the India, nearly, you can say, the 6 lakhs active cases. If I'm talking about the today's morning report of the government of India, we so far we have around 20 lakhs cases. Precisely, it is the 19.64 lakhs cases of the coronavirus. Out of that, we are having the active cases of 5.95 lakhs. Why I'm mentioning this, you can imagine, even if you consider the 1 kg per bed per day, and we have the nearly 6 lakhs cases, you can say the quantum of biomedical waste which we are generating from the only active corona cases is almost same what we are generating in pre-COVID scenario. So this becomes the twofold. Then in addition to that, as already we have noted, and we have realized that not only the these active cases are responsible for the generation of the biomedical waste, which is equal to our pre-COVID scenario, the general or the typical generation, that everybody is using the various protective equipments, PPEs, personal protective equipments, and these personal protective equipments again are likely to have the threat for the spreading this coronavirus. So that also need to be properly collected. So the challenge lies here, because the challenge is not so much in collecting the biomedical waste from the healthcare facilities who has created additional bed. If I'm talking about the today's afternoon report of the Chief Secretary of the Government of West Bengal, nearly 23,500 additional bed, they call as a bed for the COVID patient, have been created. So you can see that the amount of additional biomedical waste which is being considered as more infectious than the our other biomedical waste need to be taken care. But the challenge lies the waste which is being generated from the home quarantine, the challenges which are the challenges lies to collect and properly dispose of this waste, which the can say the 1.3 billion people of the country is using the various personal protective equipment to minimize the threat of getting infected by the coronavirus. So as already we have noted that this coronavirus is can say the highly communicable disease, and the waste which is being generated during the treatment of this coronavirus is highly contagious, and this unscientific disposal will lead to the various, you can say, the environmental and health risk. As Dr. Keswani has already mentioned that, I'm not going in the detail. And as already we have noted that this pandemic has increased in the can say the use of disposable masks, hand gloves, and the other protective gears, which again had the very, very, can say, the long life cycle, the residence time, uh, of these, you can say, the personal protective equipments in the environment is very, very high. And these are going to lead the various environmental threats if these are not properly collected and disposed, not in terms of only spreading the disease, but also causing the various environmental problems, which I believe Dr. Arindam Bhattacharya will throw some light on that. This you can see the just glimpse. And as already we were discussing, if the segregation is not proper, the small amount of the infectious waste which is being generated at the time of taking care of the patient can make the entire lot of your waste as a non-infectious waste into the infectious waste. So that is very, very consider important point which has to be kept in mind while handling the your biomedical waste. And the bigger challenge is the not only the, you can say, the infrastructure facilities, but the lack of waste etiquette among the people, that we through the this our personal protective equipment, if I'm talking about this post COVID scenario, in our dustbin, but that is not advisable. That is required to be collected separately. We have to keep it separately for the at least 3 days, and then, because since we do not have the separate collection system, the our urban municipal bodies or the local panchayat who are responsible for collecting the waste from door to door are not so much equipped, are not having the facilities to take care of these infectious waste separately. So we can have the our, you can say, the indigenous mechanism that we can store it for the 3 days separately, and then after 3 days it is being considered recommended by the Central Pollution Control Board that we can discard it into the same bin of the your our domestic garbage, and then that can go with the. So as we have already considered, realize that the because of this many-fold increase in the biomedical waste generation due to this COVID, the prime, you can say, the stakeholder who are under risk includes the sanitation workers, medical and pharmaceutical staff, patient and attenders, and also the public. You can say that everyone is likely to have the risk of not only consider spreading the coronavirus, but also leading to the various environmental risk and the disaster. And the very recently that the NGT also has passed the order to have the scientific, you can say, the collection and the disposal of this excess amount of the your biomedical waste which is being generated due to this COVID scenario. And they have issued the number of guidelines, and it has been because realized that even the waste which is being generated from the containment zone, this are the various other hotspot, this is being mixed with the waste which is being collected from the safe localities, and this is again consider, as we were discussing, this is increasing the risk of contamination, the other, you can say, the environmental risk, but that is required to be separated, and that the biomedical waste which is being generated or which is being generated from the containment zone or the other hotspot that need to be treated separately, and the waste which is being generated from the safe locality, that has to be sent for our conventional disposal system. So likewise, there are number of, you can say, the challenges which we are facing uh, because of this COVID. And to overcome that, the WHO has issued the detailed guideline recently in the beginning of the March, and this guideline has clearly spelled out that what are the, you can say, the practices we should adopt, starting from the identifying the responsibilities of the different healthcare worker to properly can say segregate the waste with the use of the proper personal protective equipment, and also suggested that the proper sanitation of the worker and the training has to be given for the use of the personal protective equipments. Then the number of, you can say, the other, you can say, the guideline, detailed guideline, that how these waste would be recorded, how this waste need to be, you can say, the sent to the proper place for the disposal, that they have already spelled out. I'm not going in the detail because this presentation will be with you in case you need that. Then on the in the line of WHO, the Central Pollution Control Board, as per the directive of Honorable National Green Tribunal, has also issued the guideline that how the your waste, which biomedical waste, which would be generated from the healthcare facilities which are dealing with the coronavirus cases. They have issued the detailed guideline to collect, to store, to properly treat the waste which is likely to be generated from these various treatment, diagnosis, and quarantine facilities. And this, the CPCB guideline primarily include that this all healthcare facilities which are having this isolation ward for this coronavirus, they have to comply with all the, as we were discussing, the biomedical waste management and handling rules 2016, and the guideline which had been issued for the purpose by the Central Pollution Control Board. And they have specified that they have to have the separate, you can say, the collection system, separate bins for collecting this COVID-19 waste from their isolation wards, and they have to maintain the separate records for that, because as we were discussing, that we do not have the scientifically proven data that how much this biomedical waste we are generating because of this COVID-19 scenario. Then this general solid waste should be collected separately, and the various, you can say, the your other waste has to be collected separately, and then we have to provide the appropriate personal protective equipments to all the you can say, the workers, paramedical staffs, doctors, while taking care of the patient to minimize the risk, including the sanitization worker. And they have also developed the website that is to have the tracking of the digital tracking of the biomedical waste, COVID-19 biomedical waste generation, and that this site is, this particular app is available in the CPCB site, which can be you can say, the downloaded. This is known as your COVID-19 BMW app, and this will give you this as a occupier, or as a generator, or as a occupier of this facilitator of the common hazardous waste, common biomedical waste handling facilities. We have to upload the daily data on this particular site so that we can get the insight of the your, and even all the, you can say, the your municipal authorities have been directed to upload the data of the waste generated from the your home quarantine, and they have been instructed that this, the waste which is being generated from the home quarantine, that need to be not sent to their typical municipal waste disposal site, but that they have to have the tie up with the common biomedical waste treatment facilities, and that has to be sent with them. So if we see the say the our own state scenario, as we were discussing, that the West Bengal Pollution Control Board is keeping the track on the biomedical waste generation, and the monthly report as per the requirement of the Central Pollution Control Board is being uploaded, and all the, you can say, the protective measures are being taken care, which includes the you can say the use of personal protective equipments while handling this biomedical waste, then the proper collection, segregation, and then labeling, transportation, and ultimately safe handling of this waste to the common biomedical waste treatment facilities, so that it can, and as already I mentioned, that we have the adequate common biomedical waste treatment facilities in our state. And so if the waste is properly segregated, collected, and handed over to this common biomedical waste treatment facilities, it can be taken care by those, the operator of those 6 facilities. So let the waste of the sick not contaminate the lives of the healthy. With that, I conclude my presentation. If we have any question, we can discuss later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor K.M. Agarwal, for your insightful presentation. Now we are retrying to present the presentation of our first speaker, Professor S.C. Chhatra, retired professor of Kalani University. If there is any query regarding this presentation, one can ask their question at interaction session after the lectures, end of this webinar. Who are now streaming on YouTube can ask their questions in the chat box.
Organized by Paribesh Sathi, an enthusiastic group of budding environmental scientists of Kalyani University primarily, that they have organized a very nice topic in webinar, that is environment and health, in the present perspective of COVID-19 pandemic situation. In fact, I will speak in brief about the present-day environmental scenario of the country, and their with particular reference to the public health concern, specifically with respect to pollution, with respect to their health impact, almost a major kinds of pollution I try to cover. In the today's webinar, I intend to cover up the environment and the public health. Initially, I try to give a brief account of the environmental scenario of the country, and subsequently I try to cover up in the presentation about the public health concern. When you talk to the linkage between environment with the human life, you find that the environment which prevails around all living creatures, including mankind, and that environmental scenario change with times, change with the with both natural processes as well as the man-made activities, and many of these changes which have direct linkage with the with the health of the living system, including mankind. Next. Basically, the public health, which is a major concern today in this century, 21st century, primarily affected by a number of factors, environmental factors, and also direct or indirect issues of the man's activity. Uh, these public health concerns we try to cover up in terms of the pollution issue, in terms of the climatic response that control the human physiological behaviors, attitudinal behaviors, psychological behaviors. So all these issues which are directly linked with the environmental changes at the modern present day situation. Next one, the relationship between the environment and the public health is basically it's a very complex issue. It includes the global change, global climate change, global atmospheric component change, hydrospheric changes, and many other biotic interactions in the domain of the human environment. Many issues we understand over the years, and many issues yet to be addressed. For better survival of the living system, including the humankind, we need to understand the relationship, proper relationship between environment and the public health. So, thus there is a great need for understanding the relationship in a more precise manner. Next. So as I mentioned, that there is a health impact due to pollution, there is an environmental impact, there is also the societal behavior with respect to economy, with respect to societal change, because it has harmful impact on the human health. And we try to cover up these issues, how our atmosphere is polluted with time, how our hydrosphere is polluted with time, all there is a surrounding environment, how other kinds of pollution like noise, odors affect the public in the present day country, and especially with respect to Indian scenario. So, as I mentioned broadly in other presentation on water, primarily the water is basically a very essential component from the planet Earth, and over the time there is a big crisis of the water issue throughout the world, and the reason behind is primarily demand for water is increasing with time, and availability goes down. Particularly in the global context, the water volume is decreasing, particularly the fresh water. And whatever the fresh water is there, which is used for all kinds of available purposes, industrial, agriculture, and domestic uses, decreasing with time. Next, for domestic consumptions, and that potable water primarily get contaminated with time because of a variety of human activities, maybe industrial activities, wastewater runoff in wastewater system, maybe groundwater contamination for a variety of reasons. some induced reasons, some natural reasons over the time. And particularly the country, tropical countries, including India, facing a great crisis of potable water shortage, at the same time contaminated water sources. And that leads to a major crisis in public health today. Microbes is one of the major contaminants in water, particularly in drinking and cooking water, and there is a bacterial contamination, there is a protozoal contamination, there is salmonella contamination. So the tropics, a major concern of the public health epidemic outburst of waterborne diseases, and World Health Organization regularly monitors the situation and try to give appropriate recommendations how to combat with the waterborne diseases in tropics. In addition, the water quality, particularly poor sanitation, had other water-related diseases. It will not be a direct contamination of the drinking water, but maybe poor sanitation leads to other water-related diseases, including waterborne diseases, basically related to, as I mentioned, that the water related to water, directly related to water and food sanitation, and these are the, as per WHO, the number of diseases are given, how they are transmitted, and from the rural to the system, and to food contaminants and others, and the major issue today is the process. So this is a exhaustive list, including the physical diseases, protozoan diseases, protozoan, and also the health diseases. Dominant pathogens which can cause problems today, particularly tropical countries, including India. Next one. Periodically, the World Health Organization analyzes worldwide the incidence of water-related diseases and waterborne diseases, come out with detailed statistics over the time, and that, and also some kind of a recommendation how to overcome such kind of public health issues. Their recommendations are followed in many cases, including India, and public health, from the standpoint of public health, in fact, over the time, water-related diseases decrease, maybe localized water-related diseases are there, but not in pandemic fashion. Next one. But how to overcome the water-related diseases? There are some recommended suggestions, because one must know through which route the pathogen enters into the health, in the public health situation, that requires proper care, and public awareness is needed to overcome such kind of water-related diseases, both direct cholera, diarrhea, other gastrointestinal diseases, or other kind of enteric diseases. So, lot of awareness generation, lot of improvement of sanitation in the community level, that improves the situation of the time. Next one. Other issues, one is microbial issues of the water pollution, but the other issue is the chemical contamination related to public health, that is the drinking water contamination. Mostly in Indian context, the drinking water used the groundwater. And over the time, the groundwater gets contaminated. There are a lot of reports for last 4 or 5 decades with respect to arsenic, with respect to fluoride, with respect to nitrate, and as a consequence, or are also other heavy metals. As a consequence, a lot of diseases coming out. Now, the fluoride, basically, particularly in India, many parts of the Indian states have fluoride problems, and fluorosis is a common syndrome, both dental fluorosis, skeletal fluorosis, other disorders of the neural system, other disorders in the digestive system due to fluoride toxicity. And it's a major issue that the groundwater gets contaminated because of geological, geochemical alterations of the rock underneath the soil. And in fact, with respect to Bengal, around 8 to 10 districts under severe contamination of fluoride. Fluoride at risk condition is very unique for the public health, but when it exceeds the limit, permissible limit, it was problem. Similarly, another issue came in a major problem today for last 4 or 5 decades, like fluoride, the arsenic. Around 9 to 10 districts in West Bengal now under severe contamination. Many states in the including Northeast and other regions also, in Ganga Basin and other Brahmaputra basins, there is a contamination of arsenic in the groundwater, and it has a number of symptoms, number of problems, including melanosis, keratosis, edema, skin cancer, and many other irreparable problems of public health and chronic arsenicosis, along with the fluorosis in many parts of the world, both together, parallelly, but serious water pollution problem. The only solution is to provide the clean water. Another issue came in a water pollution in a recent decade, at least last 2 decades. Extensive use of groundwater leads to nitrate contamination. The reason is in present day situation for higher use in the field of agriculture, huge nitrate salts are used, and many of these salts leak out and contaminates groundwater. And with extensive use of groundwater, nitrate pollution is also coming up, and it is again an issue of concern. So the fluoride, arsenic, nitrate, and in addition, there is a common problem of iron. Many states have iron problem, and the iron gets so for drinking water issues, particularly microbial and the chemical issues, a lot of measures have been taken up to combat the problems of public health over the time, and many technology came up for removal of all these problems. There are a number of epidemic investigations carried out in many laboratories in world of India, including the Bengal also, epidemic investigation, and that try to understand what are the microbial content, what are the chemical contaminants, and how to overcome this issue, and what should be the health program for future to overcome the major concerns of the public. So that's a basic issue I try to cover, water related or water pollution. With respect to air, particularly in urban environment, the public health is directly linked to the air pollution. And during the last couple of years, we have seen major cities of India, including the metro cities like Delhi, Calcutta, Madras, Bombay, and some other important commercial cities uh, gets polluted over the times, and a variety of sources of pollutant comes. Majority pollutant, sulfur dioxide, gas pollutant like sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, the ozone, secondary pollutants like ozone, hydrocarbons, and the dust, fine dust, particulates, PM10, PM2.5, increase in urban environment, spread in the peri-urban zone, and which had a number of health concerns, short-term and long-term basis. And over the time, these what monitor, what are the pollutant, what is the levels, and pollution control code, which was created as per legal provisions in the country, state and central pollution control board and state pollution control board, they have put standards of the air quality in urban area, residential area, industrial area. But in spite of that, pollutants are increasing over the time. A lot of measures were taken up, and these pollutants enter to nasal passages and to trachea, tracheoly, and to the lung alveolar sac, and causing damage. There are a lot of studies carried out over the time of these pollutants cause health hazards in short-term basis and long-term basis. And what are the major disorders? Respiratory disorders and other kinds of disorders like headache, dizziness. Even in the higher, long exposure of the pollution in the higher concentration may lead to death, morbidity, and dysfunction of the lung and morbidity, cardiovascular disease. Industrial air pollution is also industrial accident is the cause of death in many cases, right from Bhopal incidents to the present day incidents in Visakhapatnam, and the IOP for us, how the chemical pollution, gas air pollution liberates from the industries and cause the public health concerns. As a lung and other cardiovascular failure leading to death. All those who survived had a lot of damages, short-term and long-term damages in their health system. So that's the major issue. A lot of studies also carried out that the urban pollution, how in a long-term basis, both primary pollutants and secondary pollutants from households, from industries, from roadside activities, posing a great concern, great challenge. And to combat this, a number of measures already taken up to regular taken up to monitor the water quality and their source enforcement. Which are the major sources? To which sources the pollutants coming up, and how to combat those sources. Standards were made, residential, industrial, and commercial areas. Standards were made to combat the air pollution problem. Public awareness was created. Industries were asked to control air pollution through adoption of a number of measures. So in spite of that, the urban area having ever-increasing air pollution problem, and in countries like India, in fact, 15 to 20 cities is highly polluted on a global basis. The major concern for the year. So that needs a major issue to be tackled over the times, and public awareness, public participation, public initiativeness is needed in spite of the legislative measures. So this is a challenging issue. Children and the old age people, and with high air pollution in urban areas, already lung functions very good time. Lung function. There is a chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases in the people in our environment. And if there any kind of respiratory infection like pneumonia or COVID infection, which serious concern for morbidity of a great challenge for the population. Next one. Well, next one. I'm going to elaborate those issues. There are many strategies can have to combat urban air pollution. State should decided for the vehicular education. Compared to various kinds of vehicles, times, and in fact it's up to 2002 now Euro 5 with norms has been adopted. And at the same time, to reduce the vehicular pollution, the fuel pollution, national fuel pollution, okay, and major urban areas, all the fuels are treated fuel. Many major cities, they are going for all vehicles for CNG, compressed natural gas, to combat the air pollution in urban environment. So that the urban population can be comparatively much better environment. At the same time, there is also measures have been taken up to reduce the urban air pollution, very urban air pollution, or industrial areas, particularly the particulate PM 2.5, and at the same time, acid pollution. So green belt is two of the terms, and the separated and this industrial area and urban area developed for the urban plantation and able to still solution, filter particulate and still condition. A lot of plants were tested during the time. And a proper design of green belt has or industrial operation, either environmental clearance in a new country or a junction in a hospital required green services mandated. And so I have to, when you select the plants for green belt, one should carefully examine which sort of plants should be there. Whether the plants are tolerant to pollutants, like human beings, like all other living creatures, whether the plants are tolerant to, otherwise green belt has no meaning. So you have to get the plants which are of good type of plant pollution tolerant plants. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide is the ozone tolerant plant, they have the capacity to filter particulate, suspended particulates of the air. Throughout the world, many plants were selected in temperate climate. In our country also, we have selected more than a dozen of plants for clinical creation, so that the self pollutants can be absorbed at the same time you can have. In the last part, we try to cover up with respect to noise. For a long time, noise is not considered as a health problem. Noise basically would define as unwanted sound. Many of us often listen the rock music and stereo with high volume, high pitch. But if you have continuous exposure of unwanted sound, it not only induce your hearing loss, but also other kinds of physiological problems like sleep, digestive disorder, headache, dizziness. So that one has to be very careful about the noise issue. And the noise, it comes from a variety of sources. It's more like a source to impact zone in the form of waves, like light waves. But noise is faster than light, and there is a audible range, and below the audible range of sound, you can have higher noise, which has higher noise, and it also both two things are there in respect to noise. One is loudness and the frequency. Sometimes it may have a low loudness, it's not much, but the frequency is such it has a irritation. That noise is nothing but a sound which irritates unwanted. And in fact, over the times, there are last 4 or 5 decades, noise monitoring was done, noise level meter, and basically it's popularly known as a decibel meter. And this decibel meter, with the help of a decibel meter, regular monitoring of noise in industries, in the urban areas were made, and how to curb this noise. In fact, noise has a direct health impact beyond 80 decibels, which was recorded for the noise, may lead to hearing damage. Sometimes other kinds of problems like nausea, dizziness, and in fact sometimes pain in the ears, and sometimes it may cause other kinds of problems like permanent hearing damage. As I mentioned, that the noise may come from a variety of sources: industry, transport, and the occupational area, occupational activity which leads to noise. And in fact, understanding of the noise when it comes as a pollutant or the health impact is there, short-term and the long-term basis. Pollution Control Board has started giving some kind of reliable noise level from various occupational machines, the cars, industrial zones, and the standards were fixed. And all the standards need to be handled with proper care. Otherwise, it may cause a public health. So to expose the noise, occupational noise, for a longer period, they have a direct impact, as an auditory impact, there is hearing loss, temporary or permanent, and a number of non-auditory tools are there. There is a speech, communication, the working efficiency, and psychological disorder. High noise for a long time, high noise exposure for a long time leads to a variety of psychological stresses, and to combat all these noise level problems, a couple of issues have taken up over the times, couple of monitoring at different zones, exposure zones were taken up, so, so that the hearing loss can be tackled up, hearing apparatus can be protected properly. In fact, hearing loss, it could be, one is noise induced, other could be a pathological, or other could be a disease, or could be a trauma. And all these losses are over the times. In fact, people are monitoring physiological changes, psychological changes, and how to overcome all these changes, problems. What are other kinds of risk factors? Noise gains for the children is dangerous. The parents should know all these issues that they are the risk factors of the hearing loss with the children. There is a risk factor in the psychological changes in children from the hearing loss issue. Sometimes it will happen, there is a rupturing of the hearing apparatus, tympanic membrane, and that leads to permanent damage to hearing. Noise also had some secondary lifestyle impact, elevated cholesterol. Yeah, of course, noise, not only noise, the other kinds of toxic exposure leads to public health together. Noise and other kinds of exposure. In fact, the Pollution Control Board has set up a standard for noise, residential area, industrial area, commercial area. And also some zones are earmarked as silent zones, daytime and nighttime. Industrial workers, for the industrial workers, the level of noise exposure there fixed as per the rules guidelines, and in our country also we have followed the rules guidelines. 8-hour exposure is limit, and vehicular noise also standards are standardized at the country, adopted in manufacturing stage to the presentation. And so these issues are well taken up, but a lot of acts were so made throughout the world. You can assist the noise as well as the water and a lot of control measures, as I mentioned, with respect to air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution. All these need to be tackled together. And the green belt has multi-purpose functions. The wastewater to be filtered, the green belt irrigation, wastewater irrigation, contaminated wastewater irrigation. Green belt directly to out in air purification and also noise activity. So all these have to be curbed. The planner has to be taken into consideration in urban and peri-urban planning to combat all kinds of pollution problems, so that the public health could be properly addressed. Lastly, I will touch upon some issues in the recent pandemic situation, which forced us to confine our lifestyle, which forced us man-to-man contact, linkage, direct linkage due to COVID situation. Today, that needs to be it's a global problem. India is a non-exception, and over-increasing food are there. and it's a new kind of viral infections. And we are yet to make out an appropriate strategy to combat with the issues, how to tackle, and the climate, whether the climate has impact, direct or indirect impact, whether the physical climate, the biological environment around us, how far it imposes problems, yet to be certain, and strategically, as early on to be some public awareness generation we are giving at individual level, at community level, and for therapeutic purpose. In fact, treatment, there is no definite direct treatment, but there are a lot of measures that are taken up to overcome the respiratory hazards, particularly these virus, the kind of SARS virus. But this SARS virus is much more severe. The people, those who are urban people, those who are long time exposed to high air pollution level, particularly low at the ground level, which leads to already damaged lungs. And if the persons are severely affected with COVID, infected, and for the morbidity very much strong. So that is all. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Professor S. Chatra, for this informative presentation. Now, with the permission of Chairperson, I would like to introduce our last speaker, Professor Arindam Bhattacharya, Professor in the Department of Zoology, University of Calcutta. Before joining University of Calcutta, he was lecturer in Department of Environmental Science, University of Kalyani. He has completed his PhD in 2006 from Bose Institute, Kolkata. He has received various national and international awards and fellowships, such as National Scholarship, European Scholarship to present the paper at International Workshop, Turkey 2004, Swiss National Science Foundation Grant, Social Society, Royal Society Collaborative Grant, Fulbright Nehru Senior Research Fellowship. He is also the life member of Indian Association of Cancer Research, Indian Immunological Society, Indian Parasitological Society, Indian Association of Neuroscience, Indian Cell Biology Society, Zoological Society of India, etc. With the permission of the chairperson, now I am pleased to call Professor Arindam Bhattacharya to deliver his lecture.
Thanks a lot. I'm audible?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank Paribesh Sathi. It's kind of my old link with my University of Kalyani, Department of Environmental Science, and really like to see few of my old students and my friends, as well as my colleague, Professor Chatra, Alok, Torun, Joyji, and also I like to thank especially Pinaki, Shomi, Paushali, and all the members of the Paribesh Sathi. It's a tremendous platform, and it's really encouraging for us that the new generation of Kalyani University environmental students are perfectly right on their track. Now, I have no presentation, but I have a little bit of talking about what the recent pandemic situation and the relation of this thing is COVID-19 with the immune system, as well as the changing environmental pattern. There is a joke about immunology. Just 2 days back, Jessica Metcalf of Princeton University published, an immunologist and a cardiologist are kidnapped. The kidnappers threaten to shoot one of them, but promise to spare whoever has made the greater contribution to humanity. The cardiologist says, well, I have identified drugs that have saved the lives of millions of people. Impressed, the kidnappers turn to the immunologist. What have you done? They ask. The immunologist says, the thing is, the immune system is very, very complicated. And the cardiologist says, just shoot me now. So the thing is that immune systems is very complicated, arguably the most complex part of the human body outside the brain. And it's an absurdly intricate network of cells and molecules that protect us from dangerous viruses and other microbes. These components summon, amplify, rile, calm, and transform one another. It's a kind of different kinds of machines, some of which are aggressively smashing things to pieces. Now imagine that their components are level with what looks like a string of highly secure passwords like T helper cell, interleukin, interferon. Immunology confuses even biology professors who are not immunologists. Even the word immunity creates confusion. When immunologists use it, they simply mean that immune system has responded to a pathogen. For example, by producing antibodies or mustering defensive cells. When everyone else uses a term, they mean with the hope that they are protected from infection, that they are immune. But annoyingly, an immune response does not necessarily provide immunity in this colloquial sense. It all depends on how effective, numerous, and durable those antibodies and cells are. Immunity. Now the burning question is usually a matter of degrees, not absolutes. And it lies at the heart of many of the COVID-19 pandemic's biggest question that we are facing every day. Why do some people become extremely ill and others don't? Can infected people ever be sickened by the same virus again? How will the pandemic play out over the next month or next year? Will vaccination work? To answer this question, we must first understand how the immune system reacts to the SARS-CoV virus, which is unfortunate because you see the immune system is very complicated. There are three phases involves detecting a threat, summoning help, and launching the counterattack. While cells sense molecules common to pathogens and uncommon to humans, they produce proteins called cytokines. Some act like alarms, summoning, storm, and activating a diverse squad of white blood cells that go to town on the intruding viruses, swallowing and digesting them, bombarding them with destructive chemicals and releasing yet more cytokine. Some also directly prevent viruses from reproducing, and these are delightfully called interferons. These aggressive acts lead to inflammation, redness, heat, swelling, soreness. These are all signs of the immune system working as intended. This initial setup events part of what's called the innate immune system. It's quick, occurring within minutes of the virus entry. It's ancient, using components that are shared among most animals. It's generic, acting in much the same way in everyone. And it's broad, lashing out anything that seems both non-human and dangerous, without much caring about which specific pathogen is afoot. That is not specificity. It can kill any kind of pathogen. What the innate immune system lacks in precision, it makes up for in speed and robust and rapid destruction of the pathogen. So its job is to shut down an infection as soon as possible. Failing that, it buys time for the second phase, that's the critical one of the immune response, bringing the specialist factor. Amid all the fighting in your airways, messenger cells grab small fragments of virus and carry this to lymph nodes, where highly specialized white blood cell, T cells, are waiting. The T cells are selective and pre-programmed defenders. Each is built a little differently and comes ready-made to attack just a few of the jillion pathogens that could possibly exist. For any new virus, you probably have a T cell somewhere that could theoretically fight it. Your body just has to find and mobilize that call. Picture the lymph nodes as bars full of grizzled T cell mercenaries, each of which has just one type of target they prepare to fire. The messenger cell burst in with a grainy photo showing it to each mercenary in turn, asking, "Is this your guy?" When a match is found, means the virus and the virus-specific T cell, the relevant arms up and clones itself into entire battalion. That is we call clonal proliferation, which marches up the airways. Some T cells are killers, which blow up the infected respiratory cell in which viruses are hiding. Others are helpers, which boost the rest of the immune system. Among their beneficiaries, these helper T cell activate B cells that we are now very much known nowadays in the television and all advertising media that produce antibodies, small molecules that can neutralize viruses by gumming up the structure they use to latch on to their host. Roughly speaking, and this will be the important letters, antibodies mop up means number is increased, the viruses that are floating around and outside the cell, while T cells kill the ones that have already worked their way inside. T cells do demolition, antibodies do cleanup. So T cells basically kill the enemy and the waste, everything cleaned by the antibody. So both T cells and antibodies are part of adaptive immune system. This branch is more precise than the innate branch, but much slower. Finding and activating the right cells can take several days. It is also long-lasting. Unlike the innate branch of the immune system, the adaptive one has memory. After the virus is cleared, most of the mobilized T cell and B cells forces stand down and die off. But a small fraction remain on retainer. Veterans of the COVID-19 war of 2020, bunkered within your organs and patrolling your bloodstream. This is the third and final phase of the immune response. Keep a few of the specialists on tap. If the same virus attacks again, these memory cells can spring into action and launch the adaptive branch of the immune system without the usual day-long delay. So if you first time infected by the COVID-19, you have a chance to get again COVID-19 second time to get infected, but you will fight better and better. So if you cross the first time infection, then you are just like me. I just crossed my first infection COVID positive just 5 days back. So again, the COVID-19 can attack me, but I will fight much more better. That is the beauty of the immune system. This account is what would happen when the new coronavirus enters the body based on general knowledge about the immune system and how it reacts to other respiratory viruses. But thus, again, I am telling immune system is very complicated. In general, the immune system reaction to COVID-19, what I would expect if you told me there was a new respiratory infection? A report from Shane Crotty from the Lajolla Institute of Immunology in USA. The innate immune system switches on first and the adaptive immune system follows the battle. In several studies, most people who are infected develop reasonable level, mind it, reasonable levels of coronavirus-specific T cells. So don't be panic about the television, about the newspaper, about the pharmaceutical giants. They are telling that your antibody will be decreased, your T cell will be decreased. Yeah, antibody can decrease. Your titer can decrease within 2 months, 3 months, but your T cell will survive at least for the MERS and the SARS case, at least 1 to 2 years. And it's not all the viruses same, just like chickenpox virus. The memory cell totally become intact throughout the life. But it is not in the case of flu, general flu, that's common cold. We have the antibodies for 3 months, we have the T cells for 1 year to 2 years, but it's okay. But it's not life-threatening. Where the life-threatening, there's a different question. Still, any virus that can make people sick has to have at least one good trick for evading the immune system. The new coronavirus seems to rely on early stealth. Somehow, that is the danger of this COVID-19. What happened? They delay the launch of the innate immune system, the first line of defense, the rapid and robust. It just delays and inhibiting the production of interferons, those molecules that initially block viral replication. I believe this delay is really the key in determining good versus bad outcomes. One scientist known as Iwasaki, an immunologist at Yale, he published a brief time window in which the virus can replicate unnoticed before the alarm bells start sounding. Those delays cascade. If the innate branch is slow to mobilize, the adaptive branch will also lag. Many infected people still clear the virus after a few weeks of nasty symptoms, but others don't. Maybe they initially inhale a large dose of virus. That's why you are wearing masks. If you are not wearing masks, you have a greater chance to inhale a large dose of virus. If you're a health worker, just Professor Agarwal said that the public, before that, the sanitization worker, health workers, doctor, nurse, research scientists, they have a huge chance of inhaling the large dose of virus. So they are the real target victims. In some cases, the adaptive immune system also underperforms. T cells mobilize, but their levels recede before the virus is vanquished, almost causing an immunosuppressed state. So one person is taking a drug for the kidney disease. One person is taking a drug for the diabetes. One person is taking steroid for the asthma. These are all immunosuppressant, and they have always higher chance to get the virus in. The old-aged person, the immunity is decreased, so there is a chance. 0.5% people, these have no other comorbidity, no other disease, a real chance of any kind of critical situation. Death is far behind. Critical situation is not possible in these 99.5% people. So don't be panic, don't be fear, no, don't spread rumor, don't be superstitious. It's a simple flu virus, but it's a new flu virus. That is the problem. We are Indian facing different kinds of flu from our childhood, as well as SARS, MARS, everything, and we fight back. And now you have a question why Americans and Europeans are lacking. Yes, there is also immunity question. It's very healthy environment is good, but extremely healthy environment may be risk for the future. What can I say from this point of view? The dual failure, innate and adaptive system failure, innate immunity, the virus migrate deeper into the body toward the vulnerable cells of the lungs and to other organs, not only lungs, kidneys, blood vessels, and GI system. That's why we have less amount of smell and taste and nervous system. The immune system cannot constrain it, but does not stop trying, and that is also a problem. Immune response are inherently violent. Cells are destroyed, harmful chemicals are unleashed. Ideally, that violence is targeted and restrained. As Metcalf puts it, half of the immune system is designed to turn the other half off. Immunity is good, but hyperimmunity provokes inflammation. So, but if an infection is allowed to run amok, the immune system might do the same, causing a lot of collateral damage in its prolonged and fleeting attempts to control the virus. This is apparently what happens in severe cases of COVID-19. If you can't clear the virus quickly enough, now you are susceptible to damage from the virus and the immune system, says Dana Farber, a microbiologist at Columbia University. Many people in the intensive care units seem to succumb to the ravages of their own immune cells, even if they eventually beat the virus. Others suffer from lasting lung and heart problems long after they discharge. Such immune overreactions also happen in extreme cases of influenza, but they wreak greater damage in COVID-19. There is a further twist. Normally, the immune system mobilizes different groups of cells and molecules when fighting three broad groups of pathogens: viruses and microbes that invade cells, bacteria and fungi that stay outside cells, and parasitic worms. Only the first of these programs should activate during a viral infection. But Iswaki's team recently showed that all three activities in severe COVID-19 cases, it seems completely random, means huge level of immune reaction that is not healthy for the patient. In the worst cases, the immune system almost seems confused as to what is supposed to be making. No one yet knows why this happens, and only in some people. 8 months into the pandemic, the variety of COVID-19 experience remains a vexing mystery. It's still unclear, for example, why so many long haulers have endured months of debilitating symptoms. Many of them have never been hospitalized and so are not represented in existing studies. that have measured antibody and T cell response. David Putrino of Mount Sinai School of Medicine published that 700 long haulers and a third had tested negative for antibodies. I can clearly say lucidly, there are many persons having symptoms consistent with COVID-19, still, and huge level of symptom, but still they clear all the virus within 3 to 4 days. So, and it is unclear if their immune system are doing anything differently when confronted with the coronavirus. We should expect such mysteries to build. The immune system reaction to the virus is a matter of biology, but the range of reaction we actually see is also influenced by politics. Bad decisions mean more cases, which means a wider variety of possible immune response, which means a higher prevalence of rare events. In other words, the worse the pandemic gets, the patient will suffer more. Few patterns of an easier possible explanation. Kids have very trigger-happy innate immune system, says Florian Kramer of Mount Sinai School of Medicine, which might explain why they rarely suffer severe infection. Elderly people are less fortunate. They also have smaller standing pools of T cells to draw from, as if the mercenary field bar from earlier metaphor is only sparsely packed. It takes longer for the adaptive response to mobilize. There are also preliminary hints that some people might have degree of pre-existing immunity against the new coronavirus. For example, in India, we suffered from cholera to measles to everything. So we have a huge level of cross-reactive antibody that is very close to coronavirus, that very close to other influenza virus. And it is also found in the Germany, US, Netherlands, Singapore. There are 4 groups studying that found that 20 to 50% of people who are never exposed to COVID-19 nonetheless have significant numbers of T cells that can recognize it. These cross-reactive cells likely emerge when their owners were infected by other related coronavirus, including the 4 mild ones that cause 1/3 of common colds and may infect other animals. Professor Farber cautions that having these cross-reactive T cells tells you absolutely nothing about protection. It's intuitive to think they will be protected, but immunology is where intuition goes to die. The T cells might do nothing. There is an outside chance that they could predispose people more and more severe disease. We can't know for sure without recruiting lots of volunteers, checking their T cell level and following them over a long period of time to see who gets infected and how badly. Even if the cross-reactive cells are beneficial, remember that T cells act by blowing up infected cells. As such, they are unlikely to stop people from getting infected in the first place, but might reduce the severity of those infections. Could this help to explain why, politics aside, some countries had an easier time with COVID-19 than others? Could it explain why some people incur only mild symptoms? You can go pretty crazy pretty quickly with the speculation, says John Crotty, who co-led one of the studies that identified these cross-reactive cells. A lot of people have latched onto this and said it could explain everything. Yes, it could, or it could explain nothing. It's really frustrating situation to be in. I wish it was not, he adds, but the immune system is really complicated. One of the most pressing mysteries is what happens after you are infected and whether you could be again. Crucially, researchers still don't know how much protection the leftover antibodies, T cells, and memory cells might offer COVID-19 against COVID-19, or even how to measure that. In July, a team of British researchers released studies showing that many COVID-19 patients lose substantial level of their coronavirus neutralizing antibodies after few months, like 3 months. An earlier Chinese study published in June found similar results. Both prompted cascade of alarming headlines, which raised concern that people could be infected repeatedly, or even that a vaccine, many of which work by adding neutralizing antibody, won't provide long-time protection. Just like polio, we have to take every day by advertising by Amitabh Bachchan to Shah Rukh Khan. Just saying, we have to take every different dose of this polio vaccine, even for the hepatitis. So anything, maybe it's our prediction, this virus cannot provide long-term protection. But many of the immunologists I spoke with We're not too concerned because reassuring this time, the immune system is really working well. That's why the death percentage of any country is just 1%. And why we panic? Basically, it's only affected 19 lakh people, death, I think 36,000. The TB, tuberculosis, killing 5 lakh people every year in India. 3.5 lakh people died in malaria. What happened? Why this is being very much panic, creating panic? Because it affects the rich person. It can affect Amit Shah to Boris Johnson. That is the problem of the politics. So we are not bothered about tuberculosis. We are not bothered about other kind of infectious disease, just like flu, cholera, anything, because there's a poor man disease. This is the politics, and where the politics lies. So our immune system, the last I am pointing some of the points, first declines and the environment relation. First declines are expected. During an infection, antibodies are produced by two different groups of B cells. The first group is fast, short-lived, and quickly unleashes. So antibody is not the hopeful part of our immune system. And quickly unleashes a huge antibody tsunami before dying off. The second group is slower but long-lasting and produces gentler antibody, cells that continuously wash over the body. The transition from the first group to the second means that the antibody levels usually decline over the course of an infection. There's nothing scary about it. In fact, that's why after 10 days, I am giving my plasma because I am 30 days over. After 30 days, the antibody level is very high. And after 60 days, the antibody level is decreasing. So it's best time to give the plasma of the COVID survivor is just post 30 days of the test. But the fact that you don't have measurable antibodies doesn't mean that you are not immune. Iswaki says T cells could continue to provide adaptive immunity even if the antibodies tap out. Memory B cells, if they persist, could quickly replenish antibody levels, even if the current stocks are low. And crucially, we'll still don't know how many neutralizing antibodies you need to be protected against COVID-19. So this uncertainty again going on, that there is a common notion that antibody quantity is all that matters, but it's more complicated than that. The quality of the antibody is an important. Quality might be defined by which part of the virus the antibodies stick to or how well they stick. Indeed, many people who recover from COVID-19 have low levels of neutralizing antibodies overall, but some of them neutralize very well. Quantity is easier to measure. There are more ways to characterize quality, and we don't know which ones are relevant. This problem is even worse for the T cells, which are much harder than antibodies to isolate and analyze. This uncertainty strengthens the need for large, careful vaccine trials that we are all looking for. Right now, it's hard to know whether the promising signs in early trials will actually lead to substantial protection in practice. Scientists are trying to work out how to measure COVID-19 immunity by studying large group of people who have either been infected naturally or taken part in a vaccine trial. Researchers will repeatedly measure and analyze the volunteers' antibodies and T cells over time. There's no way to speed that up, says Kramer, one of the vaccine trial head. In the meantime, anecdotal reports have described reinfection, people who apparently catch COVID-19 a second time and who test positive for the coronavirus again after months of better health. Such cases are concerning but hard to interpret. But one thing is very hopeful, that is right for very, very, very few cases, less than 0.1%. So if someone like that caught the flu and went to their doctor, they might get tested for coronavirus again, get a positive result, and be mistakenly treated as a case of reinfection. The theory is that it's not case of reinfection. There is a remnant of the vaccine protein inside the body of the patient. So he is not a super spreader, or he cannot spread the infection, but he has some remnant of the viral protein. So immunity lasts a lifetime for some diseases, chickenpox, measles, but eventually wears off for many others. So it's just a probability. As the pandemic drags on, we should expect at least a few instances which people who have been beaten COVID-19 must beat it again. So for the fact that reinfection is still the subject of smattered anecdotes suggests that it's happening very low rate. Kobe says, but remember, a bigger pandemic is pandemic. When there are almost 5 million confirmed cases, something 0.1% of the time will still affect 5,000 people. if people endure a second bout, second attack of COVID-19, the outcome is again hard to call, but is very hopeful. He or she will fight it more better than the earlier ones. For some diseases like dengue, an antibody response to one infection sometimes can counterintuitively make the next infection more severe. So far, there is no evidence this happens with COVID-19. And what will determine our future with the virus is how long protective immunity lasts. For severe coronavirus like MERS and the original SARS, it persists for at least a couple of years. For the milder coronavirus that cause common colds, it disappears within a year. It's reasonable to guess that the duration of immunity against COVID-19 lies within 1 to 2 years, and that it would vary a lot, much like everything else about the virus. Everyone wants to know, says Nina Lebert from the Duke University, we don't have the answer. Most people still have not been infected first time, let alone a second. The immediate uncertainty around our pandemic future does not stem from the immune response. Kobe says policies that are enacted and whatever people will distance or wear masks, but for the next year and beyond, modeling studies have shown that the precise details of the immune system reaction to the virus and to a future vaccine will radically affect our lives. The virus could cause annual outbreaks. It might sweep the world, just like bird flu, coming every year. Now again the bird flu. But we are being adapted to that. TB is going for last 100 years. We are not completing, our race is still continuing. So don't be fearful, don't be panicked. The virus could cause annual outbreaks. It might sweep the world until enough people are vaccinated or infected and then disappear. It could lie low for years and then suddenly bounce back. All of these scenarios are possible, but the range of possibilities will narrow the more we learn about the immune system. That system may be vexingly complex, but it also both efficient and resilient in a way that our society could take lessons from. It prepares in advance and learns from its past. It has many redundancies in case any on defense fails. It acts first, but has checks and balance to prevent over reactions. And in the main, it just works, only works by the immune system. Despite the multitude of infection threats that constantly surround us, most people spend most of the time not being sick. It's a complicated system. Again, I'm saying, I think it's beautiful too. And finally, the environmental connection. It's already in Calcutta and throughout all the cities. The air pollution level make people more susceptible for this virus spread. It is a clear study from the epidemiology. This virus easily get inside entry of the lung cell by ACE2 receptor that is very much vulnerable in the polluted areas, in the mine areas, in the high urban areas, in the populated areas. And that virus spike protein use the ACE2 receptor. And you know what is the role of the ACE2? ACE2 is basically acid angiotensin converting enzyme 2. And that is a very important factor for our blood pressure. And it basically reduces the level of angiotensin 2 and 2 molecule. It's a very harmful molecule that increases our blood pressure, hypertension, and it also brings break down the alveoli, the lung part, which is the source of oxygen to get inside the body. So this, if the ACE2 is occupied with this COVID-19 virus, then there is a huge increase of the ANG2 molecules. So our hypertension, our blood pressure increases, our oxygen level decreases. That is the most risk, you know that. That's why pulse oximeter is a huge high demand things in the market. So oxygen saturation level is very important, and all the polluted cases and all the highly populated area, there is a huge level of ACE2 receptor engagement by the virus than the non-populated, less populated, less polluted things. And what about the US and Europe? The thing is different. That is not for the pollution, that is for the immunity, less immunity for this, because we are born and brought up with cholera, bad water, bad environment, bad noise. That's Professor Shatra told that. The noise pollution, sound, water pollution, everything. So our body is more or less immune, good one. So So this ACE2 receptor is very, very critical. An ACE2 receptor is highly vulnerable in the old aged person. So this virus occupy the ACE2 receptor, and that's why angiotensin 2 is increases the blood pressure, reduces the oxygen, and this patient gets to critical stage, need ventilation support. So this is the whole story of the COVID. And the best and the last I want to conclude, COVID-19 just create a very good thing for one, that is environment. For the last 5 months, the noise pollution is decreased in a beautiful, holistic level. The air pollution in Calcutta, as well as throughout the part of the China, UK, and everything, is pollution decreased to 40%. Water pollution decreased high level. The carbon credit, the carbon fuel emission, that's decreased to high level. So I think COVID-19 is somewhere positive, at least with a hopeful noise. And lastly, final thing, a small politics, that this environmental protocol, the Rio de Janeiro protocol, as well as Stockholm proposal, tell USA to please allow to expend $6 trillion for the renewable energy sources. And the US administration doesn't just overlook, because why I waste money for the development of environment? What happened? Now, this pollution, because of non-use of the renewable energy sources, USA in last 3 months already spent $8 trillion for the COVID management. So that is the real paradox of the protection of the environment is very much required for other infectious diseases, not only COVID, as well as we have to know the immune system to fight back COVID-like pandemic. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Arindam Bhattacharya, for your very informative talk on several immune aspects. Now the interaction session is open to all. Our first speaker, Professor S.A. Shatra, is not attending this webinar at this time, so we have just contacted him over phone, and he has already get the answer of queries. So we are going to play the recorded version.
You can ask in any kind of language, Bengali, Hindi, English, anything. It's an interactive area, so it's very clear to you.
Now we are going to play the recorded version.
Sir, there is one question arise from YouTube session. The question is COVID-19 pandemic creates more vulnerability for arsenicosis patient in arsenic-prone areas?
Okay. In fact, the COVID-19 is particular target region is the respiratory. Respiratory syndromes that they are prevalent, particularly infect the respiratory channels, trachea, tracheal, after entering through the nostrils, and it locates into the alveolar sacs and all. But arsenicosis primarily is a metabolic disorder, particularly acting on liver, acting on kidney, acting on other metabolic, on to some extent in neurological part. Basically, there is no linkage between COVID-19 infection and the chronic arsenicosis. Now, there is no relevance, particularly in the arsenic-prone areas, and more prevalence or less prevalence of COVID. There is no relationship because both have different target area of functions in the body. That's my opinion.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Those who are participating in the Google Meet can directly ask your question to our respected speakers. There are some questions from YouTube viewers also for Professor K.M. Agarwal. This is from Orpita Roy. Where is offsite treatment and dispersal involved in biomedical waste service? This is for Professor K.M. Agarwal. Professor K.M. Agarwal.
Yeah. Oxide treatment of what? Which oxide? Kausali,
Hello.
can you clarify the question? What question is? Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, sir. The question is, where is offsite treatment and dispersal involved in biomedical waste services?
No, it's not oxide treatment. Regarding what? Oxide treatment we are not having. We are having the disinfection, we are having the incineration, then we are having the certain capsule making, and then ultimately the sanitary landfill treatment.
Okay, sir.
That
And another question is Suman Sengupta. Is there any scoring or evaluation scale, particularly for the hospital, that will represent the efficiency of all these waste are being processed?
Actually, as of now, there is no scoring system directly, but we are having the, as I mentioned, biomedical waste management rule that need to be complied. So under that, even we are working on that to develop certain benchmark and for the scientific, I was mentioning, even the debate in the parliament, what figure we have placed, that is 1700 tons of the biomedical waste generation every day, whereas the pollution control board is reporting the 500 plus. You can see the last 3-4 year average, so you can see that where is the myth. And then again, this is the amount is collected, means nearly 1000, means you can say the 40 to 50% is only being scientifically received and then the treated and disposed of. Balance 60% is unaccounted. So that definitely will come in future, and the NGT is intervening to have the more, you can say, the environmentally sound benchmark. We are developing on that. We are working on that.
Okay, sir.
For the hazardous waste we are working. Maybe soon we can work on the biomedical waste. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. And the next question is for our speaker, Professor Arindam Bhattacharya. This is from Madhurima Kanji. What type of food we can take to increase our immunity during COVID-19 situation?
It's a very common question. In fact, any healthy food means very good amount of water, protein-based food just like fish, chicken, Nutrella, and just a small multivitamin, just like A to Z vitamin, 1 cap or just 1 multivitamin tablet, just for the protection. That boosts your overall antioxidant system, anti-inflammatory system. These are the things, but there is no such kind nowadays in throughout the advertising world. Everything from Horlicks to Colgate, everything is advertised just like anything. It boosts immunity. It has no. It's nothing. It's nothing. Basically, everything is required for. It's turmeric. It's garlic. It's chicken. It's fish. Everything for good for the immunity. Not the junk food. Not the what can I say? Rich food. That is not healthier for the body, not healthier for the immune system. So take a good amount of water, vitamin, fruits, and proteins. That's enough.
Thank you, sir. And if there are any other queries,
hello. Hello.
Yes.
I have one query to Agarwal sir. Hello. Hello, hear me?
Yeah. Tell me. Tell
Sir,
me.
what
Tell me.
about what about the contamination of sewage water from the COVID-19? How we manage the sewage contamination? That the sewage water we cannot manage treatment according to the COVID
Yeah. So,
contamination. Yeah.
sewage is also one area which need to be taken care. But here we have talked about the biomedical waste basically.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
So sewage also is equally responsible that need to be taken
Yeah.
care. But that is the
Yeah.
separate because again we do not have the separate channel for collecting that sewage. Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, if you have the effective sewage treatment plant, like in the
Yeah.
hospital, so that can taken care because only you might be knowing that when we are talking about sewage treatment plant, we are using certain disinfectant, maybe chlorine or maybe the some other disinfectant. So that dosing will increase to completely disinfect that. That is the only consideration which can be taken care.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any
Hello.
other queries?
Hello. I have a question for Professor Origin Bhattacharya.
Yes.
Sir, I want to know that after donating plasma cells from a cured COVID patient, is there any chance to get again affected of that patient?
Which one, the donor one or the recipient one?
The donor one?
But maybe there is very few little chance. Basically, the donor, there's a giving up plasma is nothing related to the COVID infection or not, because you are donating the plasma for the critical care patient who lacks the oxygen, who lacks the immunity. So that is beneficial for 50% of the patient. These are in critical in case. All the patient is not beneficial for taking plasma. There is studies going on in Calcutta also as well as in Delhi AIMS that yes, plasma donation of plasma or getting the plasma of a critical patient is beneficial for 50% of the patient, but not for other patient. So plasma is doing nothing there. So there is we want to see that what are the immunologies going on. The study is going on in the IT hospital. But it doesn't mean that if you donate plasma, you are already immune. But you have a 1% chance, 0.5% chance to get again the chance of reinfection like other COVID survivor. So very low. This chance is very, very low. Until now in India, there is 20 lakhs people is affected. There is only 7 to 8 cases, even less than 10 cases reported for reinfection. That is a very, very exceptional.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now, at the end of this webinar, I like to call Mr. Arnab Kundu, AC member Paribesh Sathi, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kaushali Chaturaj, for kind introduction and brilliant conduction throughout this webinar. Okay, so I think the session is over now. Again, as an EC member on behalf of Paribesh Sathi team, I apologize if there is mistakenly any inconvenience was occurred during the session. I hope that the outcome of valuable ideas which we get from this webinar is definitely very useful for present and future scenario. Herewith, at the end of our session, we are very thankful to all our eminent speakers for sharing and delivering their valuable presentation, all the team members of Paribesh Sathi for their constant support and hard work, all the participants for their nice cooperation and listen patiently. I would definitely give thanks to our technician, Mr. Shrikant Bosak, for his wonderful technical support throughout this webinar to run smoothly. Last but not the least, I want to give a special thanks to and gratitude to Mr. Pinaki Bose for his constant help, guidance, and support. Lastly, an announcement for all about our next program will be online lecture on renowned academician on various interesting topics in our YouTube channel. Keep follow us. Thank you. Good night.